Hello my lovelies, and welcome to Allotment of the Dead. So today is the day after St. Patrick's Day. So traditionally potatoes are always kind of planted around St. Patrick's Day, at least your first earlies and that sort of thing. I know a few of the YouTubers have started some relatively early potatoes already, and there's a few of us involved in the single seed potato challenge, but apart from that, it's time about now to start planting some of the other potatoes I'm going to put in the ground. So I've got myself some compost, and I've got myself some blood fish and bone and some potato fertilizer, which smells pretty fruity. That's got to smell worse than any chicken fertilizer I've smelt in a while. And some 50-litre pots. So I've got probably about 6 or 7 of these. So I'm going to start 4 different types off today in 4 pots, just as a starter really. So which ones have I got? Right, so we've got a bright red variety called Heidi Red. Never heard of this one before, but it looked quite interesting, so we'll give that one a go. I've got some pink fir apple, one of my favourites to grow. Other than Anya, you can't get Anya seed potatoes very well, but I normally buy some from the local supermarket. Sainsbury's sells them quite a bit, and I usually plant them in the ground as well. And I've got your traditional King Edwards. So your King Edwards are fantastic for roast potatoes. I'm a big roast potato fan. And the last one of the 4 is Charlotte. So Charlotte is the best performing potato for me. It's the one where I always get a lot of quite a high yield out of these. So I'll be putting in some Charlottes as well. So the main thing to start with really is basically get some decent potatoes to start with. Even though I'm using the supermarket Anya when I can get them, I need to get some of those still. Good seed potatoes will always give you a better yield than using some from your local supermarket, although people do that as well, and they do get some success out of that as well. But a lot of it is down to how much you water it and how much you feed it. Now, a lot of the feed that you can give these potatoes is right at the start. So when your tuber's starting to get going, they're going to start getting those nutrients from the soil that you put into it. So whenever I'm planting these, I always start off with a little bit of blood fish and bone, a little bit of potato fertilizer, and go from there. Anything else, as they say, is a bonus. So if you can get hold of seaweed and that sort of thing, it's always going to do some benefit to the potatoes. I know when people are putting them straight in the ground, they put all their food scraps and everything along the bottom of the trench where they're going to put the potatoes, and then they put them in there. Whereas me, I just basically take them out the bag, put them in a pot with a couple of bits and pieces. Nothing much. There's no conscious thought really involved with it. I'm probably going to have to do a bit more conscious thought for the single seed potato challenge to give myself a fighting chance of getting something from that, but we'll see how that goes. Anyway, so what we'll do is we'll start off with the favourite potato. If you've noticed here, I've not chitted any of these. These have sat in the car probably for about 3 weeks. No conscious effort to chit them, but there's some chits on them. And again, variety of different size chits on these as well. So nothing special done with these, just left them in the car. Right, so let's start off with a nice 50-litre pot, and what we'll do is we'll put a bit of compost at the bottom. Okay, you don't want to put too much in to start with, because you want probably only about 4 or 5 inches at the bottom. when you plant potatoes, the initial potatoes that are growing usually are they're usually existing in the part of the pot above where you've actually put the seed potatoes. So they'll throw down the roots around it, but most of your potatoes will be in that upper part, which is why they always say when you've planted them in trenches in the ground that you need to cover them over. That's to stop the developing potatoes from being in the sun, because potatoes in the sun will go green, and green potatoes are toxic, as you would expect with the Solanum species. So we've got a nice little bit of compost at the bottom of the pot, and what we'll do is we'll get our potatoes. So what I'm going to do is 3 potatoes per pot. I'm going to place some chits up, so I'm going to space them evenly around the pot. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. And then we'll put some more compost over the top. So in this compost that you're adding on the top, this is the bit where you're going to put your additives. So we'll put a layer of compost. We'll put a nice equivalent of about a handful or so of the potato fertilizer, which really does smell. And then we'll open up the blood, fish and bone ready for the next bit. So again, a little bit more compost. And then about a handful or so of the blood, fish and bone. So again, we just mix that all in, and then a little tiny bit over the top. So that leaves about 6 to 8 inches at the top of the pot, which I'm going to leave. These will get a good watering, but I'm going to move them into one of the polytunnels first, because at the moment we've still got that danger of frost, and if the actual plants come out whilst the frost is around, then they'll get nipped and you'll end up with the actual stems, and the leaves will go black, and pretty much it kind of will tend to kill the plant if you're not careful. Sometimes they can come back, but more often than not you'll end up with, unfortunately, a dead plant, and then the developing tubers underneath won't be much good. So I'm going to do the same with the other 3 varieties of potato I've got. It's like I say, I don't overlook this, analyze this. Potatoes straight out the bag, because most of the farmers don't pre-chit their potatoes. They just throw them straight in the ground. They do use a lot more fertilizer than we're using, but you do end up hopefully with a decent yield off the back of it. So that's the first one done. I'll go ahead and get the others done, and we'll come back in a few weeks and see if I've got any success. So St. Patrick's Day potatoes, albeit the day after, all sorted. So that's all for tonight. Take care. Bye bye.